On the program, our conversation is going to be centered around the automobile industry. Of course, you can be part of the program, just sending your thoughts and questions or comments to any of the addresses shown on your screen. Well, on the program today, I'm going to be joined by the chairman, Automobile and Allied Products Trade Group of the Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Oseme Oigiagbe. Thank you so much, Oseme, for joining us this morning.
Thank you very much, Harriet.
Well, let's just start with a general outlook, of what the automobile industry has been like. Let's just get your general assessment.
The automobile industry it's not been very vibrant as we expect it to be. If you consider our population of over 160 million persons and the level of sales that we have, it might surprise you to note that in the year past, the last 3 years, the total new vehicle import into the country is less than 50,000, and the used vehicle is running in the region of between 250 to 350,000, which means we're almost like a dumping ground for all sorts of used vehicles from any part of the world, with no restrictions on age, size, color, safety, and things of that nature.
But there must definitely be a reason why we've seen an increase in the number of imported used vehicles as against imported new vehicles.
The reasons are not far-fetched. First, let's take it from the historical point of view. The country, before this time, we had 2 car plants, Lagos and Kaduna, and we have 4 truck plants. All were doing an installed capacity of about 200,000 units. Our population was less than 70 or 80 million then. But now these plants have gone moribund. The associated companies associated with the automobile industry, companies that produce tires and all other areas, are also on the downside, and they are not even existing. You can imagine the likes of Dunlop, Michelin, and all gone. Exide is gone. And we then focus on importation, which is looking at replacing the need for the vehicles and the environment. I do not subscribe to the fact that new importation is a solution to our problem. But I note that if the industry are not running at the right rate or the right capacity, we definitely will resort to some form of...
Oseme, correct me if I'm wrong. Most of these plants that you're talking about, they were assembling plants, meaning that CKD parts, that's completely knocked down parts, were imported and actually assembled here. It's not like these parts were actually manufactured here in Nigeria. So if we have that situation on our hands, why does it seem as if we are where we are right now?
Okay. From an industry point of view, as a stakeholder, we entered the industrial revolution, or what we call industrial phase of vehicle manufacturing, through assemblage. And that's why we went through establishing the assembly plants. It is not wrong. Thereafter, the government of Obasanjo then tried what is called backward integration, looking at our comparative advantage to move to our competitive advantage. Thus, like you have iron and steel in the country, we could run from there to flat sheets, which constitute a very heavy component of the industry. We are rubber, we're doing tires, we needed to move from there to other areas like glass and petrochemical to provide thermosets. So the major, what we call volume component of a vehicle, we could do them, but we entered the phase of industrialization through assemblage. Most countries have their own method or program of entering. South Africa started with the MIPD. In Nigeria, we had the Automobile Industrial Development Product and Plan, which is now what is the new phase. And that was supposed to take care of all the issues as to what production capacities will be. We lost in the act then to be able to upgrade and develop our component industry. And for your information, probably, and most stakeholders will know, it is about over 2,800 components to 3,500 components in any given car, which means it does not necessarily mean you must set up 2,800 to 3,500 companies to match that thing. What we were doing was in other parts of the world is to look at clusters. That's why the minister talk about cluster industry.
Okay, so before we get to talking about the clusters, let's look at other key challenges that have actually mitigated, the automobile industry getting to where it should be. Okay,
the industry issue of the basic issue, as I think there's a tangent, is the issue of power. For every other industrial setup need to run with efficient power supply. Then the issue of aggregate demand, then the issue of capacity, capital income to buy the aggregate demand, to get along with aggregate demand. So currently, the power element is which is now undergoing reform now. There will have been a sync between making the power work properly, making the power sector work properly while you're getting the whole things in place. But I do understand, and from being a stakeholder and having been in the industry for over some time, I know that for such plants to work very well, you need to have the aggregate demand in place. And aggregate demand is not in terms of used vehicle. We're talking about new vehicles. And you know, in the US, when there was a problem with the auto manufacturing industry, the government came with a bailout. That's to show the significance of the automobile industry to any nation.
Well, let me quickly ask you. You talked about the power. We know that ongoing reforms are, you know, we've seen the successful handing over of the unbundled Pt.1 to 14 successor companies. Now, there was once a time when it seemed as if some manufacturers had proposed at some point to embark on the construction of a power plant for its members, and then situating some of these companies that have, you know, that requires so much energy to work around this power plant. Has this, you know, actually come to fruition, or is there any plan for it to continue despite the fact that we have the ongoing reforms that we have in the power sector?
Yeah, you would allow me. This will lead to the same issue about clusters.
Okay.
Now the federal government has set up clusters in Lagos and in Kaduna. Each of these clusters are supposed to focus on specific aspect of the industry or work on some sort of aspect of the industry to come to a level of the component structure that will provide the inputs for an assemblage or replacement as it stands. Then the issue of standardization, because the automobile industry is not just a local industry. When you produce parts, it will go around the world. And because there is the issue of brand element, brand name, image, or brand quality, those things have to be in place. So situating the industry around the power, what we call the power take-up point, it's a good thing. But you know the industrial climate, setting up such things, the issues around the establishment of such component industry, the finance element, the take-off element. When you set up a tire plant, for example, and the total your production per month or per day cannot be taken off by your plants here, becomes an issue. So you need to work in tandem with what is your possible market in Nigeria and the possible market around your environment. So that's why it is very important that setting up such component industry, we look at the policy as to what vehicles will be taking off the components from those power points. It's very important that we will relocate our factory, not just locate them without the cognizance of where you get the energy to run the business. And that's why it's important that the clusters will work if it's well pursued in the right direction, and ensuring that they produce the right component that will be taken off by the assembly plants that will probably take off, or compelling those manufacturers that will come into the country to take some of those components and be part of their product assemblage.